all for joining us. So we'll start our side event on empowering women smallholder farmers, fostering production, and climate resilience with sustainable innovations. So we are going to hear from uh, Nigeria, and also Gambia. So we have a panel comprising of the three countries. But first, we'll just let our panelists to introduce themselves. And the good thing is that this is coming at an opportune time for us because just days ago, more than 136 nations signed the Emirates Declaration on Resilient Food Systems, Sustainable Agriculture and Climate Action. And you also know that in the next few days, we'll have the Agriculture Day during COP. That's on 10th December. So at least we know that a lot this year during COP28, there's been a lot of emphasis around agriculture. So first, we'll give our panelists a chance to introduce themselves.
Good evening, everyone. I am Famara K. Damfa. I am a Gambian based in the United States at the University of Minnesota. I'm a lead scientist. My work focuses on the nexus between climate and nature. So I look at things like ecosystem-based adaptation for climate resilience and for climate mitigation. In the Gambia's context, I also have an NGO there called Help Gambia, of which I am the founding executive director. So do some other things like working with the World Bank on climate risk assessment and the like. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Salome Wanda. I'm the Executive Director at Africa Center for Sustainable and Inclusive Development. It's an NGO based in Kenya, working with marginalized communities. I'm also a climate, gender social inclusion expert with focus on food systems. Good to have you all here today.
And good evening, everyone. My name is Elichilo Kwemi. A young Nigerian who grew up hating agriculture but now works in the agri-food system space for the past 6 years via my organization, non-profit organization, Youth in Agroecology and Restoration Network, where I work with farmers at the local level to empower them with the best practices for sustainable agri-food systems, leveraging on the 13 principles of agroecology. I also work as the co-executive director of Care About Climate, a US-based international nonprofit that is empowering young people to be able to meaningfully engage when they access this high level of climate decision-making space. And lastly, I work as the co-chair of the Youth Policy Board for the World Food Forum, which is an initiative of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN. Happy to be here with everyone.
Thank you. And good evening, everyone. I am Wambui Muchaba, trained engineer in agriculture, specifically soil, water, and environmental. I work as a programs director for inclusive climate change adaptation for a sustainable Africa, acronamed ICASA, which works with inclusivity and climate change, inclusivity and gender in climate change, mainly about inclusivity in climate actions. Thank you.
So first, we're talking about empowering women farmers. And I think it's also key to know that in Africa, close to 62% of Africans are employed in the agriculture sector. And so maybe we'll first just hear from Salome, particularly around some of the agricultural practices in Africa that maybe has demonstrated effectiveness, particularly among women. And also, what are some of these how do, for instance, women contribute, or how do they benefit from some of these agricultural practices in Africa?
Thank you, Bob. I'll start with just the overview. As Bob has mentioned, 62% of Africans rely on agriculture. They are employed by agriculture. And if you look at the smallholder farmers, the food that we eat in agriculture, in Africa, majority of it come from smallholder farmers. In Kenya and in Tanzania, for example, over 60% of food that is consumed in those countries are by smallholder farmers. And that is why we can't leave the smallholder farmers when you're talking about agriculture and climate. We can't leave them behind because we know that a third of greenhouse gas emissions are from food systems, the entire value chain of food systems. So if we are are talking about reducing greenhouse gas emissions, we need to also focus on the people who produce for us this food in a small and a large way at the same level. And most of the greenhouse gas emissions, we know they don't even come from the smallholder farmers, but they're the ones who bear the brunt burden of climate change impact. So we need to look at them as, yes, their vulnerability status on when the climate change impacts occur in these various areas, but also the potential that they have in reducing the greenhouse gas emissions during the food production. But it goes beyond the food production to the entire value chain of the food systems. And we're looking at women to be specific because women form the majority of the population of the smallholder farmers, and the most vulnerable as well within the smallholder farmers that we are talking about. These women, most of the time in Africa and specifically Kenya and parts of East Africa and sub-Saharan Africa at large, they do not own the land. So they don't have that ownership and control over the land. They have the access, but they cannot dictate what is being used in this land and how it is being used. So you are the ones doing the production, but you can't say, you can't dictate how you're going to do the production. So we need to bring them on board and think about them on what and which ways do we have to involve them in a sustainable and effective and efficient way. But it goes beyond that to finances. The women data has shown that the majority of the most poor people. And if you're talking about smallholder farmer, they're already having the small-scale production where the output, the commercial or the financial muscles are already not so big. So, and then you have it as a woman, then it means the finances are low. So we need to come up with strategies of ensuring these women access these finances. So we must make the finances to be as inclusive as possible and accessible as possible to the diverse groups, and have specific climate financing for agriculture and food that targets these women. And we're not going to look at women only as the vulnerable group, but they also have potential to really transform the food system and transform even our economies. That is why we need to include them, because when we include them, we are likely to enhance their resilience, climate resilience of the various communities. We are likely to increase the economic levels or rates of these communities as well, because if they are the majorities and they already know how to use this land in a sustainable way, it means if we can help in increasing their production, then we're going to increase the agricultural output of these communities and these countries and have more finances out of agriculture. But how can we do this? Some of the successful techniques or innovations or technologies that have been used include solar powered irrigation, the drip irrigation, the use of the mechanization of the processing of foods as well. So we have to ensure that whichever of such techniques we are going to promote, take into consideration the specific and interest and needs of the women. When you come up with mechanization process that needs a lot of energy, you might find that most of the women don't have that energy. Sometimes it's too high there, that most of them might not be as tall as you expect them to be. It means you are limiting them and you are systematically cutting them out of using those technologies. So those are some of the things that we need to consider when we are talking about innovative approaches or technologies in enhancing that enhanced production of these smallholder farmers, having women in mind. But it goes beyond the production level where we already have the farms and we already have crops in the farms, and think about the soil itself. And today in this pavilion, you're talking about a soil health day. We need to think about accessibility of the bio inputs, the biofertilizers that we keep talking about. How accessible are they? If I go to my village today, will I get that biofertilizer, and at what price? And do I know that even if it's a little bit higher, it costs a little bit higher, what is the value of the true cost account of using that specific fertilizer. So those are some of the things that we really need to have targeted messaging, targeted innovations, targeted activities around smallholder farmers, around innovations in those areas, and women and maybe youth in mind as we do that. So I'll let the moderator to take it back to my step.
Thank you. Thank you. There's increasing discussion around agroecology, and I think for OPEMI, right now, even at the core processes, most countries are trying to promote agroecology in their countries. It has taken a bit of time because I think it's still a new concept for most people. Anytime they hear people talking about agroecology. So maybe you can be able to share what are some of the policy practices that we should ensure that are in place to ensure that people adopt agroecology. But at the same time, besides the policy processes, how can we also be able to empower women, particularly because you're talking about women smallholder farmers? How can we be able to empower women to ensure that they adopt agroecology and also the principles of agroecology?
Yeah, thank you so much. And pleasure to be here again. I think when you started, one of the things you mentioned was that people are still finding it difficult to accept agroecology, even in policy as well as in practice as well. And I think that's one of the challenges that we've had to contend with ourselves in the in our advocacy about mainstreaming agriculture into the agri-food system transformation space. And one of the questions we've been asked repeatedly is, where are the case studies? Because now one of the narrative is that agroecology cannot feed the growing population, growing global population, whereas we forget that one of the challenges we have to food security, it's not just the problem of production, but accessibility concerns. Currently, we produce more than we can eat, but that has been the narrative that has been going on, that agroecology cannot feed the population. So, but then I think one of that is the policy, because the knowledge is still not there. The multiple benefits that agroecology provides is also still not there. So one of the ways to address is this. When we go into the policymakers, when we go into our government representative, one thing we're doing is to identify the case studies. What are the success stories? What are the researches that has been done? What are the work that has been done at the local level that is really boosting production, not just in quantity, but also in quality, because that's what we need to emphasize when we talk about food security. It has largely been about having the quantity, but it's really important in the quality as well. So one of the things has always been having the case studies such that when we go to them, we are able to convince them. And most times when we want to influence policies, people tend to go to want to jump to the national, the international levels, forgetting that it's best to start at the local level because in Nigeria, for instance, we have 3 levels of governance: the local, the state, which is the subnational, and then the national. The people at the local level are easy to connect with, right? We can really, really easily access them. And to really influence policies, we need a network of those who call the converted, those that you've preached the agroecology to the 13 principles, and then they've seen the benefits. Then if you can change their perception at the local level, when they go to the meeting at the state level, they bring that notion with them, and they are able to influence policy there. Then when they go to the national levels, they are also able to influence the policy because they've been converted, they've seen the benefits of agroecology, they've seen the positives there. And the other thing is, before we come to spaces like this, it's always good to engage with our country negotiators, right? To go with them with our case studies, with our success stories of agroecology, such that they are able to mainstream it into their position, into what they are bringing to the negotiation rooms. So with that, they are able to influence the policies and decision making there. But talking about how we can bring women into this, right? One of the current realities in the agri-food system space is that the income of the farmers is not reflective of their investment. And like Salome mentioned earlier, that we're talking about organic fertilizer, we're talking about the biopesticides and all that. What's the reality that when I go to my village, it's going to be there, it's going to be accessible for them. And one of the ways that we've been addressing that is, the whole essence of our project is to reduce the inputs that goes into production such that when they do sell, they can make more income. And the way we're doing that is to build their capacity on how to produce these organic fertilizers, right? We know that, the resources are usually readily available. Over 50% of the waste that goes to the landfills in Nigeria are organic waste. These are waste that can be repurposed to produce organic fertilizer such that women farmers and youths don't have to buy. And if they're able to produce themselves, then they can use. So it's about building the capacity on how to make the production, right? How to produce the organic fertilizer, the biopesticide itself. And like I mentioned, the income is currently not reflective of their investment. So by building the capacity on the production, you are giving them an alternative means of livelihood, alternative source of income. Because then they can produce, they can sell, they can make money while their crop grows, while they are able to harvest and sell and then make money from that. So they also have something to build on. So one thing we've been doing in advocacy is not just the agroecology, the 13 principles of agroecology, but to build the capacity of the farmers on how to produce these things right, how to, what's it called now, how to produce the organic fertilizer, how to harvest their seeds, and then conserve them and then use them in the next planting season. We talk about agroforestry. One of the limitations is the seedlings are not there for farmers to plant, so they are not able to adopt agroforestry, right? But by building the capacity on how to set up a mini nursery where they can grow the indigenous seeds, indigenous food seeds, then that makes adopting agroforestry more easy. And then by putting all these measures in place, that means we're having more success stories, because if we make it easy for them to adopt by putting in place all these measures, building the capacity on how to produce it, then we have more case studies to showcase when we go to talk about policy, mainstreaming this into policy narratives with our negotiators, with our policymakers, because that's one thing they've always asked. Where are your case studies? So by putting all these measures in place, building the capacity, then we have more case studies, and then we might be able to just influence policies, because it's really difficult to ignore evidences, right? Once they say that, okay, this is really making change, this is really bringing the change in narrative that we want, they might be forced to mainstream it into policies. Thank you so much. Back to you.
Thank you. Maybe just to build on that, and maybe now going to Wamboi, we know generally in Africa, people normally say that women produce around 70% of food in Africa, but in terms of owning land, they own less than 20%. But at the same time, when it comes to the labor, it's almost 60 to 80%. They comprise 60 to 80% of the total labor force in Africa when it comes to the agriculture sector. And maybe you can be able to just share some examples. Maybe just to start, maybe you can share how do we ensure that you're able to prioritize maybe some technologies that women can be able to adopt, bearing in mind that a huge percentage first do not even own land. At the same time, they comprise the biggest labor force in the agriculture sector. So how can we ensure that first we're able to prioritize, but also able to ensure that we're really inclusive when designing and also implementing various interventions in the agriculture sector?
Thank you, and thank you for highlighting that women are the majority in terms of providing labor in the agricultural sector in Africa. And it's also good to highlight that majority of the women are smallholder farmers. And if they're to be classified in terms of income, they'll also classified as low income in Africa. So there's always that assumption when we are designing technologies. We see a technology that worked in Tanzania and we assume it will work in Kenya. Or we, just even within the country, you might pick one technology and you assume that just because it worked in a particular town in that area will also work in a particular town. There's also the generalization we have seen where we assume all women, when we are designing technology, we go like it's for women, but we forget to do what we call a need and vulnerability assessment. And this need and vulnerability assessment helps us define the different needs that is contextual to a particular location. It helps us identify the challenges, the knowledges, even what different roles and responsibility, and that's where now gender comes in, what different roles and responsibilities these women do in that particular town. And we know that culture differs from one tribe to another in Africa. So there are areas where women are actually the main workers in the farm, but there are areas where both men and women work in the farm. So that's why it's very important for us to do a need assessment and a vulnerability assessment, as well as profile the number of women, the groups of women in a particular area. If we come to a village, for example, where we all come from, we'll find there are different types of women. There's a lactating mother, there's a teenage mother, there's a widow, there's an elderly, there is the different groups of women within a certain particular area. It's to be wrong for us to assume that a technology that works for a youth will work for an elderly. It will be wrong for us to assume that a woman who makes decision in a home will be able to apply the technology the same way in a household where the woman is not allowed to make decisions in that home. So over here, we are now bringing in the importance of also reviewing resource ownership, who makes decision, who plans, who ensures that if you're going to buy a technology, that that technology is bought or is used in that household. Another thing is in designing these technologies. We have seen technologies being designed without considering accessibility, usability, as well as cultural appropriateness. Accessibility, for example, we've seen technologies being placed in big cities or towns, but the majority of our women are rural women. And for example, if they need to do soil testing, they have to travel a distance with this soil. And again, it's also expensive. They're not even able to test their own soils. So it's very important to consider affordability as well as accessibility of this equipment, and also consider the transport of these different technologies that you love the farmers to access to. For cultural appropriateness, I think Salome touched on it. We have seen technologies that they are very, in terms of usability, it's able to use. For example, there's these water pumps that I've seen where it's a pedal. You pedal and it's able to bring water from the rivers into the farms. But in most of our African cultures, women are not allowed to climb, and I'm sure most of Africans here would agree. So you find you have introduced a technology that is very good for the farm and even brings accessibility of irrigated water, but that does not mean that you have included the women, because they might find it hard to use the technology based on that culture. So it's very important for us to consider cultural appropriateness and its usability. The third thing I would like to address is affordability of technologies. Majority of where we come from, especially in Africa, there is what we call indigenous and local knowledge, and we have improvised local technologies that are actually working. And if we can, instead of just continuing to create new ideas, can we also improve what is working, what is already accepted? And this brings in partnership with local women groups, because they'll be able to share with you more knowledge and information on what is working and how can we improve on that. And that will even help us design technology that is very contextual, particular to a particular area. So in terms of training, in case you want, when we introduce technology, there's also the part that includes training. It's very important to consider the time that women are available for training. If we look at the different roles women play in the society, in the morning, they'll obviously be taking care of their children or their household. In the evening, they'll obviously be, the children have come from home, so they'll be cooking dinner and all that. So if you put trainings that disrupt this responsibility that they play in the society, you'll not be able to have the women come for those trainings. At the same time, consider the fees and the amount that these trainings may incur. For example, if it's a low income household and your technology or your training is expensive, most women will prioritize their families and their homes to ensure they are fed. So there's a high chance they will not pay to come, they will not pay to buy that technology. And when we are considering costs and we are considering such things, it's very important for us to see, how can I ensure that the different groups of women in my local area are able to attend this meeting, and how do we ensure that they are able to still afford, in spite considering the fact that they still have other needs, and they will always prioritize their family above these technologies. Thank you.
Thank you. Particularly, because you're talking about smallholder farmers, issues around technology is key, as you have pointed out. And so maybe now we'll be able to hear from Dr. and Famara, but specifically around aspects now still on innovations, some of the innovation solutions and strategies, and how we can also be able to address the uneven impact of climate change, specifically on women.
Well, thank you very much. I think I have a very difficult job to do because you started with a woman and you ended with a woman before me. I think this is a very important discussion that we're having here today. And when I was asked to be on this panel, I was wondering what to say. And I'm going to do two things. The first thing is to give you a depressing story about the challenges that women face. And again, the generalization has some specificity to it, right? Because when we generalize women in general, but there are also among women other groups that are more vulnerable. So I came to the decision that I was going to drop out of the panel because I have better women who have better stories to tell you about this discussion today. But I'll invite them. But before I do that, I'm just going to give you a few reflections. The discussion here is about climate, and we're talking about what climate smart agriculture or livelihood solutions. Now, the whole story of climate we have to rethink because climate is a generational issue, right? The way we used to do things, we got to change the pattern, right? And then we're talking about innovation. What is key to innovation is education. Also bring in the research angle. Someone who sits in academia, I think that's also important to think about the role of research in innovation and the role of training. But then the other key word we have here is technology. What type of technology? Does this include nature-based technology? So that's the kind of technology that sometimes we talk about, right? Nature-based technology doesn't mean that it has to be some fancy thing that is developed outside. Our women, our communities have their own traditional technologies that they've been deploying. So let's reflect on those things. These things are important because, at least growing up in a village in the Gambia, I really hated farming. And I don't shy away from saying this because farming is hard, it's challenging. The statistics are that the average farmer's age is about, again, across Africa it varies, but in some countries about 40 to 60 years old. That's the average age. You know, it varies across countries. So what does that tell us? It means that the youthful population is not interested in farming. It was not just me that was running away from farming. It was my friends, and in fact, even in the context of Africa, it's more challenging for our sisters. Because growing up, some of like the boys have some priorities in many African communities than the woman does or the girl does. When the family is to make a decision who goes to school, sometimes they will say it's the boy. And then the girl takes care of the household stuff. So that even makes things harder and challenging for women as we speak now. And then different groups of women, especially the smallholder farmers, are also facing a lot of challenges. And you all know this, and I don't need to say this. But related to the topic of education, let's have some guiding questions to reflect on. Anytime we're thinking of what innovation, we're thinking of technological development, I try to say the context matters more. Think about in which context are you developing this technology, who is designing the technology, who is developing the technology. In fact, who is the innovator of the technology? Why are they innovating the technology? Who is selling it, who is distributing it? Because there is a whole value chain across the distribution of technology. Where are we empowered and where are we disempowered? Because in that process, there are a lot of things happening. Sometimes we're taken advantage of, women are taken advantage of at a greater benefit of somebody who is gaining the greater percentage of the profits. So let's always have those questions to reflect on. So I'll give 3 additional things before I invite the powerful women that are with me, because as a researcher, last night I was pondering, I was like, I gotta do research to be able to deliver something that is meaningful in this event. And I was around side events looking for information. And I found the right information in the Gambian Pavilion, which is actually work that Women actually are leading, and they're here. Two Fatmatas and then Sarah. We also have another project in the Gambia that is also using improved cook stoves to distribute this to women in exchange for carbon benefits. So we have a video to show. But before we show the video, I'll just make 3 key recommendations as we think about and reflect on the solutions. The first one is on education. We must change the curricula. Education is the backbone. In fact, it's the way our education system is structured right now. We only go through old theories and old histories that do not matter. They do not make a lot of sense to our kids today. We must revise the curricula. So if you're here and you're a decision maker, you can influence the decision-making process, let's go and revise the curricula. We're talking about climate. What are the climate-smart solutions we have in the curricula today? Is climate change even mainstream? Most of us start learning about climate change when we are at the university. Doctor is here, Dr. Jerry from the Gambia also. But that has to change. We got to teach the kids climate change from the very elementary level. Trust me, I'm based in the United States. Sometimes the kids that I have, they go to school, the things that they're learning, I'm like, God, I just started learning this at the university. So we must change the curricula to be able to deliver the products, the technology, the innovation, and make sure that that value chain in itself, it's our people that are benefiting. The local people are the ones benefiting from it. We must not allow technology that is imported and not context defined during the design of that technology, because it's going to fail us at some point. So the second thing is to provide research and innovation centers. And that is more of a tertiary level thing to do, right? From the elementary, once you change the curricula, then at tertiary level, what you want to do, you want to make sure that there is funding to create research, technology, and innovation hubs. This way, kids can compete in terms of design of technologies, and there can be competition, and there will be pilot projects and startups from that. And then the final thing is basically startup capital. You cannot do this, to be honest, in most of the smallholder farmers context that we're talking about here. If we want to get smallholder farmers that are young, again, young women interested in this space, and you will see in the video, you got to provide some startup capital. That's where funders like the UNDP, for example, Fatmata Sanyang is here from UNDP, was able to provide in the Gambian context to provide a little money that was able to make significant difference. And now they have a sustainability plan in place to make sure that that project becomes not only scalable, but sustainable. So we'll play the video now. It's probably going to take a few minutes, but I think it's the technology that you want to see. And there's a case study from the Gambia, and I wanted to show that. I want to recognize the women who are working on this project. Fatmata Sanyang, please, could you please raise your hand there? From UNDP, Sarah.
Hello.
From Mbolo, there's an association that you will see. It's called Mbolo Association, and Fatunjai. And we'll also give you opportunity to comment in the discussion. So let's play the technology, please. Thanks. The video. They are mostly young ladies, young women.
But the first day I went in Fandema, I was very happy because I was seeing my fellow students, like the guys, they are doing painting, welding, and solar installation. I was very doubt and saying that, wow, how can girls also do this welding and painting? Look at these girls are climbing at top, but this one is a main wall. Me, I don't see ladies are doing this.
I'm empowered because a woman, if you learn a skill, that will help you in your future. People think that only a man can learn a skill, but also, first in Fandema, we think that 50-50. What a man can do, a woman also can do it.
The project also definitely helps not only empowering women, but also taking into account key issues in the Gambia linked to climate change.
So that is the intervention that we are doing on that communities. We are providing them what we call a solar multifunctional platform, which is a hub with access to renewable energy, to solar energy, so that it could be used for different income generating activities.
So I think that's something that is really making an impact in that community. Little solutions that can make bigger impact in the life of the people, especially our women. This is what the project is achieving.
Energy is development. Without energy, your development is being reduced.
There is a standard model that Mbolo is using and is recommended throughout West Africa. That is to go to the communities, take their own people, train them, and take them back to their own community. So they are the very people who should develop their own places.
Things there, right? They say images send millions of messages. All of you interpret this differently, right? We see time being saved from washing. Women spend a lot of time doing that. But you have washing machines that can just do, and then they focus on other things. You see what income diversification. It's not just farming. We got to do other things. There are other young ladies, young women, young men out there that hated farming. But if we change, we rethink the way we do farming, we'll attract them back. And that's what is happening here. And all of you have your own messages from this. You see small businesses, income is coming. Kids' schools are being paid from this, right? Women are empowered. And you see when a woman is empowered in the household, she's also much respected by the husband. Gender-based violence is reduced because now the husband understands that, you know what, if I don't treat her well, that stuff will not be coming. So these are all benefits, and all of you here can watch this video and say more things about this video than I have said. But all the credit goes to the organization and the funders and the trainers. One of the trainers is here with us, Fatun Jai. So Mr. Chair, at your pleasure, you can have us say something. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nfamara. And the good thing is that today is the Energy Day. You're talking about just transition, energy and industry day. And the short video that we've just watched talks more around productive use of energy. I know we have around 20 minutes, but I know there was an example where that was to be shared. So maybe we'll first hear from her.
Yes. That's the empowerment. Take it and tell the story. Tell your own story.
Okay, good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Fadnia from the Gambia. Okay, I started the project in 2014. I was a student at Fandema, but before I started the project, I was doing a small business. I normally go and sell smoked fish to the market so that I can earn something to help my family. So with that process, every day when I close from the market, I have to go and fetch firewood to be able to use it to smoke the fish. So Fandema is the place where I normally used to go and fetch firewood. So suddenly I meet with the social worker of that institution. Then I asked her, what program do you normally do here? Because by that time I want to have skill, because I don't want to sell for the rest of my life. Because one day I will get married. Maybe my husband will not love me to go and sell at the market, that kind of stuff. So I changed the narrative that I want to go and do skills. So when I asked them, what is the requirement to get into Fandema? There is no requirement. The only thing is that you have to come with your birth certificate, and then you can start the school. The reason why, because they are trying to empower the women. Those who did not have the access to go and do education, through Fandema, you can have education there. So I started. My ambition was to do sewing. So, but when I came to Fandema, I find out that the old women are doing renewable energy, going on top of the roof, climbing, laying the panels. I said to myself, I'm more younger than them. Why not let me change the stereotype to go to do solar installation? So this is how I started. Then during that process, still, I have to go to market to sell. I have to explain my condition to them so that they allow me to come in the afternoon shift. So every day in the morning, I have to wake up earlier at 6 o'clock to go to the market to sell and come back. I close at 12 p.m. just to go to Fandema to learn that skill. So I start the school by 1:30. From Tibagaras to my home will take me, let's say, 1 hour. So from my home to the school is 10 minutes walk. Since I started, I'm never late in school. I make sure that I will attend all the lessons. When I close 6 o'clock, my mother have to wait me on the road to give me the pan to go to the beach side to go and find the fish. When I come back, I have to. Sometimes I go to bed at late night, sometimes 1 o'clock, 1 a.m. But with that, I will have 30 minutes to dedicate to my book to read because I want to make it in life. So with that, when I finished in 2015 to 2016, they decided to send me to GTTI to do electrical electronics. Because I don't finish school, but with my skills that I have, I can be able to enter Gambia Technical Training Institute in the Gambia. So I did electrical electronics with a certificate of distinction in diploma. So from there, every time I said to myself, I don't want to work outside. I want to come back to the school that I have this knowledge, to give back the knowledge to the people that need it. So I was in that process. Then I trained over 80 students. Majority of them are in the market. Others are self-employed. Others are like, and the other thing is like, we are working with the multifunctional platform because we are bringing energy to the off-grid side that you know that they don't have access to energy to our national grid. And with these farmers, we are having project with them. We provided solution for them. We have these 3D printing tools that I did the training at Fandema. I do the designing and I produce them. I make a hole for them. And if you are doing the nursery bed, normally when you have the grass and all this, they use this big hole to remove it. And at the end, it's cut all the roofs that they are using. So I find solution for them. And now they are enjoying with the tools. And we bring energy to that place. Because majority of them, after harvesting, when they go to the market, If the tomato or the vegetable is not finished, what they need to do, they either throw it or give it away. They don't have where to store those vegetables. But with our project, we bring solution for them. If you go to the market, your product is not finished, you can come and store it, and after maybe the following day you can go and sell it, you have more money. And then we provide cooling system. We have a solar multifunctional platform in Gambia, in Kato, where it's fully on 100% on solar, on ice plant, where we produce ice for more than 100 fishermen to be able to use those ice so that their fish cannot get spoiled. So this is my journey. Now I'm really happy working with Bolo every time, and UNDP, they make me to be in this place where I am today. Wow. So I said big thank you to all of you.
Yes, thank you very much for sharing your inspiration and all story. As you can see, it's more about empowering women smallholder farmers, and that's a typical and good example of how different countries are implementing different initiatives to empower smallholder women farmers. I know we have some people maybe with questions, although we have around 13 minutes. In case someone wants to add or has a question before you go back to our panelists for their parting shots. Yes?
Thank you very much, our panelists. Thank you very much, the coordinator or moderator, for this wonderful meeting. Thank you, my sister, for that initiative. Thank you, the donors, funders. Yeah, because I've noted a lot of so many things here. My sister talked about accessibility, usability, affordability of those technologies, and how, but there is the question of to what extent do you reach many? We are many in rural areas. We don't have access to that. We have tried, there's upscaling those technologies. Since if it is in that place, one place or two villages, how are we going to reach to many so that they also have the knowledge and the technologies? Another one is about, for me, in my area, we have embarked on water harvesting technologies, using local available materials. We harvest water with polythene, we dig the ground, then we make our own polythene, some 10 gauge, which is somehow stronger. We sieve it, we have the sieve, two sieves, so that we don't take rubbish and what in our tank. We call them tanks, but we just dig them as women in the community because we are lacking technologies. So we want to train many people to access that technology because it is locally available. Yet we also need more big technologies like irrigation schemes provided by government or other funders, but we lack funds. Yeah. We need more funding to upscale this to be resilient to climate change. Thank you very much. So I end by saying we need to fund, because I'm an agroecologist by practice, and we need to fund, we are looking for funds to fund agroecology. Because in agroecology, all these methods, they are taking us to be resilient to climate change effects. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm Nancy Molo, and thanks for the presenters for the good presentation. I think what is coming out very clearly, it coincides that today is also the Energy Day, is that how can the rural women accept technology in terms of energy? One of the questions I always ask, when you meet a middle-class woman either in Lagos, either in Nairobi, or somewhere, how many machines do they have? Maybe at the moment, maybe a rural woman only have the, either to use firewood or to use the jiko, which is using the charcoal or the firewood. And maybe if she's lucky, if she is having a television. But then we counted that in the city, when women income increases, they invest in technologies. So maybe a woman is having a cooker, which has got a gas. She's having a bread toaster. She's having a water, electric kettle. So actually, we find that actually in the city, a woman can have access to maybe 15 machineries, which makes her life easy. And also with technology, it's made women's life very easy. Either through the technology, either through using Uber, you can be stuck at work, but you call your child to be picked from school. With technology, you can go to the market and take the number of maybe the woman selling vegetables, and from your house, from your office, you can just sit and can you deliver vegetables to my house using a motorbike? So technology has transformed a section of women, but it's left other women without access. And when I saw that washing machine, I liked it. But for you to have a washing machine, you cannot just take a washing machine. You have to think of, do they have access to water? Or which kind of washing machine can I use? There's some washing machines which does not have to work with the water running continuously. So how is this technology going to be used with someone? Do they have electricity? Which kind of, for you to power a washing machine, very few solar system can power a washing machine. So how are you going to power them? So when we have washing machine, it's really good, but we're still reaching another segment of women, which is not the bottom. These are some of the thinking that I just wanted us to have. But I like the fact when I saw women doing the solar, most of the time I see women maybe come and sell for you, maybe like, oh, do you want this solar? It costs this much. You can pay a monthly this amount. But getting women on the roofs, getting women working like that, I think that's very transformative, because most of the time when you think of solar and the engineers, even at the local level, we think of men. So I'm so impressed that, women can go to the market in the morning and in the afternoon they go learn. Then eventually they can train other women on the technology. So I think the work is very impressive. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other person?
Ms. Sabaji, I want to put you to spot. Put you on the spot for your project, please, just briefly. I think it's interesting technology.
Oh, thank you. So we're working with women communities in Rwanda, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and the Gambia. And what we do is we deploy an energy-efficient cook stove that has been well studied by the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicines in terms of looking at the various parameters related to that device. And this includes its thermal efficiency, its rate of firewood consumption at household level, its emission of pollution relating to cooking, and a lot more other parameters. So we've just started in the Gambia. This is, I think the device got deployed in June, July this year. And already we are seeing a lot of impact related to that. But in Rwanda, we started over a decade ago. And already there are several assessments that were done to look at what has been the impact of that. And it's quite very, very transformative. And we hope to expand to other countries in the region with the view of ensuring access to clean cooking in the context of Africa. So hopefully we'll be working with some other stakeholders in the various countries, because we think sometimes we put up policies without giving the community, the grassroots, the option of ensuring that there is that compliance to that policy. When you share in the Gambia, for instance, we are burning of wood for charcoal. What is the option? If you now want to stop me going into the forest to harvest firewood for the purpose of making charcoal or for the purpose of using that wood for sale also, you have not given me the option for me to be able to be compliant as far as that policy is concerned. That's a major problem. So that's what we're trying to address. Give them the option first, and then we will be able to come with other regulatory measures to address that. Thank you.
Where is the manufacturing done, and what are the statistics?
Yeah, so this particular factory is called Burn, is based in Kenya.
Kenya.
Mombasa. So it's within our own context. Just like Doctor mentioned, we are not getting it from the West, we're getting it from Kenya. And it has gone through a lot of tests, both in the context of laboratory tests and, of course, during implementation, there are a lot of other assessments that are done to look at baseline data and, of course, look at what is happening after years into implementation of the project.
On scalability, how many have been delivered?
Yeah, so in Gambia, in Rwanda, we've already deployed 1.4 million. So very soon, you walk into any household in rural Rwanda, you will find that device there. In Gambia, like I indicated earlier, we've just started. So we've deployed 77,000, and the target for Gambia is around 150 units of that device, because we target in the rural provincial Gambia. But the feedback we are getting from the community is that wood in the Gambia, and I'm sure this is similar to other African countries, is harvested in the provinces, but mostly consumed within the peri-urban and some urban settings. So we are also looking at that to see, even though our initial target is the provinces, what do we do to address those challenges within the urban context? Thank you.
Thank you. I forgot to say my names. I'm Irene from ISAF, Eastern and Southern Africa Small Scale Farmers Forum, ISAF Uganda. Thank you.
So thank you very much, first, for sharing lived-in experience when it comes to agriculture. It's normally good just to hear from farmers. And I think for today we've heard from farmers themselves, not us speaking on behalf of the farmers. So I think we have around 3 minutes. So we'll hear from our panelists, maybe their parting shots, bearing in mind that this is the 6th day of the COP. So in terms of the progress so far made when it comes to the negotiations, particularly in regards to agriculture. So maybe first we'll hear from Sally, just 1 minute.
Oh, thank you very much, Bob. It has been a great engagement today, and hearing from people say what they do and how they do it, and making it possible for other people to learn. And it's in a way also showing that involving the people that we call vulnerable as agents of change is very important. It makes it easy to understand what exactly they need and how they need it, and make our impact or our actions to be more effective and efficient. So that is what we do at Africa Center for Sustainable and Inclusive Development. We have a project on food systems, which is called Sustainable and Inclusive Food Systems Agents, targeting women and youth as agents of change in ensuring or achieving sustainable food systems. We are talking about food, we are talking about agriculture, but we know that the discussions, we have to really push for agriculture to be on some of these decisions that are being made. We are not yet there. We've had declarations, but those are not the negotiations outcomes. So we still really need to push to ensure that sustainable food systems and sustainable agriculture is really taken into considerations in our negotiations outcomes. So when you live here, if you're a negotiator, that is something that you need to really focus on and ensure that those tiny statements that are there are really as inclusive and as inclusive as possible to the marginalized communities, smallholder farmers, indigenous peoples, the women. Thank you.
Thank you. Then maybe Opeyemi, your parting shots.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I believe Salome has talked about the need at the international level and then spaces like this. So I'll probably just take it to the local community level. Some of the things that came out from her conversation and then the experience shared is the cost implication of adopting these best practices, and also in terms of capacity building and also the funding as well. And these are things that have been taken care of by people we call extension agents in our respective countries, right? But then the narrative has changed. In Nigeria, for instance, we have one extension agent to serve 10,000 farmers when it should be one extension officer to 1,000 farmers. In Kenya, I want an extension agent to 5,000 farmers. And so they are not able to deliver on these best practices. So when we go back to our communities, I mean, we don't have to dine on the same table with the policymakers, right? But we need them because this is what they're meant to do to support local communities, to help them adopt these best practices, to let this knowledge get to them, and what the society organization, the reach that we cannot achieve, the extension officers can help do that. So let's keep engaging with our policymakers, with our governments at the local level to ensure that we are communicating these best practices to them and then calling them out on the need for more extension agents to ensure that this knowledge gets to the people that really need it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I will do my parting shot, more of an answer to her question. One, let's push for different governments to reduce taxes on these different innovations, and especially on raw materials, because that's one of the reasons why the cost of these innovations and technology is still expensive and not accessible to the women. Other things is let's encourage a lot of collaboration between private sectors, the government, and the different groups and individuals, because we see a lot of people working in silos and mainly trying to please a donor or some looking for more financing. It's not about the people and the local needs. So very important for us to work in collaboration and design innovations and technology that are specific to us, to that community that we want to work. Not for us to be coming with ideas or what we call the top approach, but to always having the bottom-up approach. And then importance of bringing these innovations to work with women groups. That will help accessibility and also sustainability of that same innovation. And fourth is vocational training, and this should be contextualized to the different local communities. And I love what she shared, where we pick the youth of that area, we train them on these innovations, then we give them accessibility and even incentives in how they'll design this innovation, and that will bring us more technology innovations in this area. And fifth is the importance of sex disaggregated data, and maybe to do with COP28, to inform these different climate actions and different designs that we are doing, because we have a lot of technology being designed, but it's not informed by the different data that is within the community. Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe finally, Dr.
Be very brief. I think on the negotiation side, let's look for increase in what they call means of implementation, which is finance, technology, and capacity. They call transfer. I don't like that word, capacity transfer, but some sort of capacity exchange, technology exchange, because sometimes it's like they develop it and then they come and deliver it to us. So we have to reject that notion of us being on the recipient side. We have to co-develop or we reject it. Because remember, developing countries, we're seen as a market, right? That we need all these things, and then there are these people who are developing the technology, delivering the technology to us, and then they get the profit. What we are getting, in as much as is convenient for us, but we are used as a market. And sometimes you buy those technologies, they don't work, and you realize that you have to take them back, or they are sitting at the backyard and you don't know what to do with them, right? So let us not allow that. We have to rethink, and that rethinking goes back to our education curriculum. We have to make sure that what is in the system, what are we teaching the kids at school, and how can we co-design together. And this is not just on the practice side, but even in the research and other side. The findings that we are using here, for example, on the IPCC report, I'm advocating for this. To what extent our knowledge, our indigenous knowledge, is considered in the science of the IPCC's work. So let's make sure that we are part of the process and not seen as somebody or people at the end. So I would encourage everybody to rethink the way we engage and the way we partner.
And before you close it, moderator, this is to request you to join us tomorrow at the Kenya Pavilion at 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., 4:30 p.m. as we talk about gender-responsive livelihood and climate-induced conflict. See you then.
Thank you.
So thank you all, our panelists. It's been a pleasure hearing from Kenya, Rwanda, Gambia, Nigeria. in terms of sharing experiences from the different countries, and specifically because all of us have been talking about empowering women smallholder farmers, and also because today is a energy and industry day, and also just a transition day, and we've had a lot specifically also around energy. And also as we close, one thing that we have also to bear in mind, that this year has been a great COP so far, particularly when it comes to agriculture, particularly because 134 countries signed the Emirates Declaration on Resilient Food Systems, Sustainable Agriculture and Climate Action. And when you look at those 134 countries, they represent close to 5.7 billion people, 70% of the total global food production, nearly 500 million farmers, and they account, at the same time, they account around 76% of the global emissions in the agriculture sector. The flip side, when it comes to the Sharm el-Sheikh joint work on implementation of climate action on agriculture and food security, I assume some of the agenda items have been pushed to June next year, so that's the flip side. But generally, I think for those in this sector, we'll appreciate the progress that so far has been made when it comes to ensuring that agriculture is put on the table. So thank you all, our panelists, those who joined us online. We had people also joined via YouTube, and also those who have joined us physically. So on behalf of our side event organizers on empowering women smallholder farmers, fostering production and climate resilience with sustainable innovation, thank you for joining us, and do all enjoy your evening.